cybersecurity, and more specifically cloud security, is really a critical skill. Um, and I want to make this announcement to everyone to say that we are starting a chapter locally that focuses specifically on cloud security. So we want to zoom in on cloud security and form a community that deals and discusses, the matters and the challenges of cloud, and more specifically, the challenges of cloud security as it relates to organizations. We all understand that organizations are engaged in digital transformation, they're engaged in cloud migrations, etc. We want to help and contribute towards that by ensuring that we upskill people around cloud security. We know the shortage of skill, and therefore we are launching this alliance, which is called Cloud Security Alliance, South African chapter. It will be launching next year. We do encourage individuals, organizations to join us, support us, sponsor us, and also partner with us to ensure that this critical skill is really gets the focus that it deserves. So it will be great for you guys to be a part of this. Our topic today is cloud resiliency. Um, and as I'm standing here today, and I'm sure as yourselves, as you are sitting there today, you probably don't know whether your organizations has been hacked or not, right? And maybe by the time you find out, it will be 3 months later, and the question is, what do you do about it? Do you respond with confidence? Will your organization be able to withstand that? Are you going to be resilient? Are you going to bounce back such that when you do bounce back, you inspire confidence back to your stakeholders, you inspire confidence back to the market? And that's a big question, and it's a scary question. And if you are not ready for that, you don't anticipate the fact that you will be hacked at some point, it is not a good position to be in. So you need to prepare for that. And I think that's the topic we are talking about it here. We are really going to talk about it in terms of how close we have come as cybersecurity professionals to talking the language of the business and to talking to business directly. And I think for me, this conversation about cyber resiliency is really that. We have taken few steps closer and away from having a simple or a technical conversation only to actually having a business conversation and trying to meet business halfway in terms of talking cybersecurity. So I'm going to touch on three things, very basic, and really driving home the point of understanding what this cyber resiliency conversation is. It should not just be us talking about it, and then also looking at how do we make it practical for your organization, both taking it from an external point of view and also in an internal point of view. What do you do in understanding what's going on in your external environment, and what do you do in understanding what's going on in your internal environment? So we're going to touch on certain methodologies, one in this case, and then we're going to touch on some routines that you need to sort of craft that are specific to gearing or preparing your organization in order to respond to these unknowns, cyber attacks. And then at the end, we're going to talk about how do we measure this, or how do we tell the organization that this is the value that we are bringing home in doing all these things that we do from a cybersecurity perspective. Quite important. I think organizations always want to know, I'm putting all of this investment in. You said I've got this high risk. You want me to do A, B, C, and D. What is my return? I remember at one of my committee meetings, I once said that the strategy that we've executed for the past 3 years has paid dividends. And the response that I got was, can we have that in the bank account? And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's really necessary that we articulate that value clearly to the business. And I don't think we've done enough so far. And hence why my last point in the presentation will be a call to action more specifically to the professionals in cybersecurity to say, how do we rally each other and try to talk to business and tell business about cyber resiliency and also tell the market about cyber resiliency? How do we give them the confidence that you have done what you need to do as an organization, and there is a leading indicator that tells, you know, all your stakeholders about the fact that you are prepared to respond. The first thing, let's just look at, you know, where we come from a mindset perspective. We've gone through these waves of mindsets when it comes to cyber security. You know, these paradigm shifts over the years. I think I've been in the space now for 15 years, and throughout those years, we've always evolved in how we think about cybersecurity, right? We've come from a point where most of the mindsets have really been technical, you know, from the 1980s all the way to the 2010s. They've really focused on what you do at a technical level. But I think we've now made the shift, and that shift is really good for us because it gets us close to having a conversation with business. And that shift is in twofolds for me. I mean, to this day, we talk a lot about zero trust. I think if you attended any of the sessions yesterday in hall number 7, you probably would have heard a lot about zero trust, which is very important. What the mindset that I want to zoom into is really cyber resiliency. And I want to talk about that as well and how zero trust complements our cyber resiliency. And I think we ought to appreciate the fact that these mindsets are necessary because we are dealing with probably an adversary that that is probably more advanced than most of us, and that is always developing, and they're probably taking up emerging and new technology quicker than we do. You know, we probably have internal restrictions, policies, etc., that delay our onboarding or adoption of these new technologies, while our adversaries are way advanced. So these mindsets, they really help us to form that united front, to say that we are building. If you know how, you know, a military operation works, you probably would have heard in what happens in the Middle East and on that side of the world in terms of wars, but you would have heard about anti-ballistic missiles. So I see these mindsets as really that. How do we form that guard around your organization specifically, and really around the community in defending ourselves should we get hit? Sorry. Now, cyber resiliency is really a business conversation, in my view. We've done a good shift to say that we are talking the business of or the language of the business. We are saying to business, how do we keep you operational, and how do we ensure that when something does happen to us as an organization, we are able to quickly bring you back. And ensure that, you know, we know the consequences that happen if you do get attacked to the organization: financial loss, reputational damage, you know, operational disruption, potentially fines. And we know about the PIA. You know, if you get a ransomware, for instance, and that involves personal information that gets exfiltrated from your organization, there is a regulatory, a legal implication there. You know, from a local perspective, we know it as POPIA, but I think in Europe you would know it as GDPR. In the US, they've got specific laws that talk to that. So that's quite important, and that's what cyber resilience is all about. So at all given point in time, or at any opportunity that you get in your organization to talk cyber resiliency, you should understand that you are actually having a business conversation now and no longer a technical conversation. However, that business conversation is supported by your technical know-how. So zero trust is really a mindset And these are not strategies. I think a strategy, we'll talk about that another day, but strategy is really about your organization. These are guides, these are mindsets. So zero trust really positions you from a technical perspective, and it then supports cyber resiliency. It supports you in recovering from those cyber attacks. So if you look at zero trust and you dovetail it with cyber resiliency. So zero trust says your identities, your devices, your data, your applications, etc. How do you put the correct cybersecurity controls in your place in order to manage the risk, right? And then secondly says, when you've done that, ensure that you abide by the principles of zero trust around always verifying, etc. Now that always verifying, assuming that you are breached, is a direct link to what cyber resiliency is all about. To say, let me prepare, let me get ready, I will have a cyber attack at some point. Do I have the communications plans in place? Do I have a cyber response plan in place? And do I know, and does the organization know, do you know the stakeholders that have a particular responsibility in order to respond when there's attack? So it's quite important that we keep the cyber resilience conversation a business and an organizational conversation specific to your organization. Now the question is, how do we then, we understand cyber resiliency, we understand zero trust, we've put in the things that we need to put in place. What do you do in order to really bring it home, this thing of cyber resilience? How do you make it practical? And how do you anticipate? You know, what do you need to do in order to say, I'm ready, I've anticipated, I know what is going to come. What gives you that, what equips you in order actually to say that confidently, that you are able to say to business that you've done what you need to do to prepare, you know, for the eventual or the inevitable cyber attack that's probably going to come to the organization. So you initially start that off by taking a broad look, you broaden your horizon, you take a broad view about your ecosystem. You need to understand. Remember that the risk we are facing, it's more so outside your organization. Your organization faces the fact that you will be attacked by something you don't know. So you need to take a broader look, get to understand your ecosystem, get to understand the different digital landscape that are growing in the environment, that bring in the different threats. Take 3 or 4 or 5 of those threats, of those vulnerabilities, or those potential cyber attacks, and you then narrow down to that and make it more specific to your organization. So ask key questions about your organization. How is your organization structured? You know, what is your organization's specific risk profile? Because all of us there might be common risk profiles, obviously, across different industries or sectors. Financial sector might say our risk profile is the same, you know, but each organization has got its own context. So you need to define that risk profile, and that helps you. You do that by asking the right questions, both internally and externally, just to understand what are you dealing with. And that's where we talk about this 5-step methodology that really will help you anticipate, and it will help you define specific scenarios that will help you then be ready to say, I've defined these scenarios, they're specific to my organization. I now need to then test them or plan them. So you need to make sure that on a quarterly basis, depending obviously on how your organization is structured, but it makes sense that on a quarterly basis, you train the key people that need to respond to that particular scenario, you know, when the inevitable takes place. This is one of the other things that you can do. You've taken an external view in the five-step methodology. Now you're taking an internal view. You are now saying, you know your scenarios. Let me enable my internal resources. So there are primary routines that you can do. And if you do the primary routines on a regular basis, you are really helping the organization to respond not with a knee-jerk reaction, but you are helping your stakeholders, you're helping your resources to actually respond more confidently when there's a cyber attack, and you don't go into paralysis. If you have a cyber attack and no one knows what to do, no one knows who needs to make a decision. We don't know whether this attack is, one that is low or one that is of a higher severity. We have no, those basics, they really need to be in place and they need to be exercised on a routine basis. And most importantly, the business must support. Executives must be, we must inform and equip executives to support us. And we must train them if needs be, to get those routines about decision making to come into place. Almost done. Okay, cool. Let me close it out. Okay. I'm talking too much. I'm going to close it out. So essentially, this is then what you have. You've got if you want to understand and you want to measure the value, there are two different types of organizations: high resilient organization and a low resilient. And you can only really measure your resiliency at the point of impact. And then the call to action is really this. We don't know how to confidently tell the market. In fact, if you are a listed organization, this should be a leading indicator, and we as a community should build it to say, in the market, you can have confidence in us that we can be able to respond to a cyber attack. Thank you very much.